We have a very dangerous major hurricane strengthening and heading very close to the Florida Panhandle tonight. I'm Mike Naso from the IPR Tropical Update page on YouTube with the latest on this massive major hurricane, Hurricane Michael, a strong Category 3 forecast to become a Category 4 and be a very dangerous hurricane, making landfall in the next 12 to 18 hours somewhere here along the Florida Panhandle in the general vicinity of Panama City and Apalachicola. This is a very serious hurricane. Here's the latest on Michael as of 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. Winds were up to 125 miles per hour. The Air Force Recon had been flying out there. They've been finding winds as high as 150 at flight level, and it is forecast to become a Category 4. It's moving north at 12. The pressure's been dropping steadily. This morning it was in the 960s. It is down to 947 millibars. Of course, hurricane warnings are up all the way down to Suwannee River from the Alabama-Florida border, and the hurricane force winds are extending out almost to about 50 miles. So that is a very, very strong core of powerful hurricane winds, and the major hurricane winds will be right around the eye wall, impacting the coast. You can see Michael's expected to go up and out, and we now have tropical storm watches along the Carolinas, because it's still going to be powerful as it pushes inland, probably still a hurricane well into southern Georgia. There's another look at that wind field, and again, the tropical storm force winds are just beginning to impinge on the Florida Panhandle, and that's why we have those tropical storm warnings for areas of Mississippi all the way down here just north of Tampa Bay, with the expectation that some tropical storm winds could affect those areas. But again, the main core of hurricane winds is close to that eye, headed for the Panhandle of Florida. Here's the radar image out of northwest Florida, Tallahassee. You are going to get slammed as well. Don't think you're going to get away scot-free at all. This is going to be very powerful for areas like Perry, Tallahassee, Valdosta, all the way into Georgia towards the Carolinas once the hurricane moves in. You can see the eye wall there of our dangerous Michael headed closer and closer now into the radar range, and these rain bands are going to get progressively worse, and the hurricane force winds will be in that area closer to the eye. Those are still several hours away, but again, the time to prepare if you have not left this region, that window is rapidly closing, that window of opportunity to hunker down. If you are in a low-lying area here along these barrier islands, areas like St. Mark's, Apalachicola, you guys are right in line for significant storm surge, and that is the main danger with this major hurricane at this time. Now, the red on this map from the National Hurricane Center indicates areas that could be over 9 feet. That includes areas like Mexico Beach, Keaton Beach, beautiful areas just going to get inundated with this storm surge. You can see Apalachicola here. They're talking well inland here. This whole coastal area could have very, very high storm surge, and that is going to be a concern. By the way, excuse my voice, I had a tooth pulled earlier today, so that's a new one. Halloween, teeth getting pulled, and a major hurricane that shares my name. This is kind of an interesting event, but very devastating nonetheless. You can see areas like St. Mark's and Oyster Bay. Look at this water rise here. You're talking about all these little estuaries, all these little bays, these ponds, these lakes, these pools of water are going to be flooding. So you'll have the rainfall flooding, which is going to be strong with a major hurricane making landfall, but nothing like that onshore flow. And remember Hurricane Dennis back in 2005? That made landfall close to Pensacola, right? But you had significant storm surges here in the Big Bend. So if this thing, Michael, comes ashore near Apalachicola, Panama City, you could have storm surges all the way down the coastline of Florida, which is why they're still expecting 2 to 4 feet, even as far south as Tampa Bay. So this is very, very serious. The upper level wind shear that kept it in check has pretty much abated. You can see that Michael is looking more and more organized. It is yet to pop out a 100% clear, well-defined eye, but it's been bubbling and strengthening enough to have that pressure drop to 947 millibars. The satellite signature is that of a Category 4, and once the hurricane catches up to its satellite signature, we will see it cross that threshold. And regardless, a Category 3-4 major hurricane strike on the Panhandle, just taking dead aim. Right now, still moving north, but again, that motion will turn to the northeast in the next 12 hours or so, and weather is going to go downhill rapidly overnight. As I record this, it's about 11:30 at night. Believe me, by 5, 6 in the morning, it is going to be a different ball game for those in the Florida Panhandle. As I mentioned, with that radar, you can see those heavier rain bands just starting to come in. Apalachicola, Panama City, even Pensacola. You guys are in for some gusty weather over the next few hours before the core of Dangerous Michael heads towards the coast. I'll be back with more updates as time goes on. The bottom line, we have life-threatening storm surge that is very likely along the Panhandle, the Big Bend, and the Nature Coast, 9 to 13 feet, and that's going to start. It's already started in some areas, and if you are in a low-lying area, get to higher ground. This is a major hurricane making landfall. Number 2, everyone along the Florida Gulf Coast should prepare for those major hurricane force winds, especially in the core. Remember, it's right around the center of the hurricane where you'll have those winds sustained at 120 to 140 miles an hour with higher gusts as this becomes a Category 4 hurricane prior to landfall. The last time we had a hurricane this intense in this area, Dennis, 2005, that was 115, I believe. We also had Hurricane Eloise back in 75. And Hurricane Opal in 95, all Category 3s. If this does make landfall as a 4, that's even stronger than those were. So it's very, very devastating with the winds. The rainfall, as mentioned, that's going to go all the way up towards Virginia, because even though the hurricane's going to accelerate, it's going to bring a lot of wet weather with it. And of course, those tropical storm conditions will likely affect the southeast coast from northeast Florida through North Carolina, and the Hurricane Center has issued those watches and warnings. So again, a very dangerous late season major hurricane, Michael, taking aim right now at the Florida Panhandle tonight. All preparations to protect life and property should be rushed to completion as Dangerous Michael heads for Florida.